Lytudiep greets you, dear friends. The story of James and Diep is not just an ordinary love journey, but a fierce battle between life and death. Can love truly conquer all? When Diep falls into a critical condition, what will James do to save her? What is he willing to sacrifice to bring life back to the woman he loves? Does James have the strength to face the fear of loss in the most painful moments of his life? When faced with a life or death decision, will James be able to accept the necessary sacrifices? Does he have the courage to give his blood to Diep, despite the great risks to his own health? And will this act of sacrifice be the key to helping Diep survive the critical situation? Will James's love be the miracle that helps Diep wake up, or will everything fall apart if she doesn't recover? In those tense moments, will they find hope and strength to keep living and loving? What challenges will James and Diep face ahead to maintain their love? What will they do when everything seems to be over? Can resilience and true love help them overcome all difficulties and rediscover the light for their future? Don't miss the emotional moments in this story. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our videos. The dim light of the late afternoon filtered through the hospital window, casting shadows over the beds in the emergency room. The atmosphere was silent, only broken by the sound of machines beeping and the heavy breathing of the patients lying there. Diep lay motionless on the bed, her long hair drenched in sweat, her face pale and her lips tinged with purple. Every time she tried to take a deep breath, it seemed like there wasn't enough air. She felt like she was sinking into a bottomless pit, with no way out. The overwhelming sense of fatigue consumed her weak body, leaving her too exhausted to open her eyes or speak the words she wished to say. James stood beside the bed, his eyes never leaving Diep, each passing moment feeling like a year. He felt as if his heart was slowly shattering. He hadn't eaten or thought about anything all day. His entire focus was on her. He had heard the doctors talk about Diep's condition, that her illness could lead to dangerous complications, and if not treated promptly, she might not survive. The doctor's words struck James like a knife to the heart, leaving him speechless. She, the woman he loved, was facing danger and he could do nothing but stand by, watching her fight for each breath. James stepped closer to the bed, gently stroking Diep's hair, trying not to cause her any discomfort. Even though he knew she couldn't feel it, he still did it, as if he wanted to transfer some of his strength to her. He whispered in her, "You'll be fine. I'm here with you." He knew that at this moment, the only thing he could do was stay by her side, encourage her, and hope that his love would help her overcome this hardship. The feeling of helplessness surged within him. He looked around at the machines, the doctors and the nurses who were rushing around, all busy with their work. But the feeling of being unable to do anything made him feel like an outsider. He couldn't give her life, couldn't replace what her body was lacking. Every time he looked into Diep's closed eyes, Diep fear crept into his heart. If she didn't wake up, what would he do? How could he live in a world without her? The doctor approached the bed, looking at the readings and the notifying James that Diep's condition was deteriorating, and immediate intervention was needed. James didn't know what to do. He could only stand still and listen to the doctor's words, feeling like he was being pushed out of the situation. The helplessness he felt grew stronger, and his heart tightened at the thought of possibly losing Diep. She was everything to him, and now he had nothing but worry and an unbearable waiting. "I'm sorry, we need to perform surgery immediately," the doctor said, his voice serious. "Her condition is very critical. We can't wait any longer." James felt like his heart had stopped. He could only nod in agreement. He had no other choice. Every thought of losing her made him feel like he was falling into an endless abyss. He held Diep's hand one last time, kissed her forehead and whispered, "I won't leave you, you have to fight. We'll get through this together." His words, gentle, yet filled with hope and love, were his only promise to her. Then he left her in the hands of the doctors, his beloved now facing the harshest trials of her life. James was left with only one thought in his mind. She would not leave him, he would not lose her. He would stay by her side, no matter how much he had to fight, even if it meant giving everything he had. This time James could no longer just stand by and worry. He could feel Diep's life slipping away with every passing second. The doctor had just left after giving the urgent news, and now everything depended on immediate intervention. The nurses were busy preparing medical equipment, but inside James his fear was growing stronger. He couldn't just stand there and watch her in this condition. The sense of helplessness and guilt washed over him, like a wave taking away all reason. "James, she needs a blood transfusion right away." The doctor returned hurrying, holding a long needle. "Her condition is critical. If we don't transfuse blood immediately, she might not survive." James felt his heart tight. His blood could save Diep, but it would come at the cost of his own safety. He looked at her pale face, the face he loved so much, all weakened by the illness that she couldn't fight. He thought of the sweet memories they had shared, the happy moments together, and then he made his decision. "Go ahead," James said, his voice firm, despite the overwhelming fear in his heart. He didn't need to think long. Every pain, every risk, was nothing compared to watching the woman he loved slip away in despair. James knew that if he didn't do this, he would never forgive himself. He could lose part of his health, but he couldn't lose the woman he loved. The woman who would become an irreplaceable part of his life. "James, are you sure?" The doctor looked at him with concern. "Transfusing blood could affect your health." "It's fine, I can handle it," James replied, his voice determined, his eyes burning with resolve. "As long as she lives, nothing else matters." James's blood was transfused into Diep's body, his warm blood flowing like a rhythm of hope through her veins. He felt his heartbeat and sync with hers, as if he was an inseparable part of her life. The coldness from her body slowly faded away, leaving only this silent connection between them. James looked at her, feeling every drop of his blood saving her life. The surgery stretched on in heavy silence. James sat there, only taking his eyes off every movement the doctors made, unable to do anything but pray for her survival. He had sacrificed his own health, but just a moment's lapse in attention could cause everything to fall apart. His heart pounded loudly, anxious with every passing moment. Sweat beads appeared on his forehead, but he dared not close his eyes even for a second. "You can't do anything more, James," another doctor said, approaching him. "Oh, it's all in her hands. We can only wait." James nodded, though he didn't want to accept that. The feeling of helplessness surged in him, but he knew that there was nothing more he could do except wait. He could only place his trust in the doctors and pray for Dee, the woman he loved more than anything in the world. "She has to live," James whispered to himself. "She has to live for me, for us." Finally, when the surgery was over, the doctor came out of the room, his face showing little emotion. But James knew that the doctors not told him everything. Diep had survived the danger, but she was not completely out of the woods yet. Both he and the doctors knew that she needed time to recover, but at least she had overcome the critical phase. James stood up, his legs feeling weak from exhaustion, but his gaze never left the bed where Diep lay. The feeling he had at that moment was indescribable. He had done everything he could to save her, and now all that was left was to wait for the days to come. In his heart, a new sense of hope began to grow. He knew that life would never be easy, but as long as Diep was by his side, he would never give up. She was the reason he lived, and he would never let her go. As the morning light began to filter through the hospital window, casting soft rays on James's exhausted face, he realized he had spent the entire night without sleep. He remained seated next to Diep's bed, unwilling to leave even for a moment. The exhaustion weighed heavily on him, but his heart was filled with a fragile hope that Diep would be okay. Through the long night he had prayed silently, whispering to himself that she would not leave him. Diep lay there, her eyes still closed, but a sense of calm had begun to return to her. The doctors had completed the surgery, and her condition had stabilized. However, the 4 tubes still ran into her arm, signaling that she still had a long road to recovery. James looked at her, his hands tightly clasping hers, as if to make a promise that he would always be there, ever leaving her side. "You'll be fine, Diep," James whispered, his eyes shimmering with tears that hadn't fell. "I'll always be here, don't worry." He smiled gently, trying to ease the anxiety in his heart. He told himself that as long as she opened her eyes and looked at him, everything would be okay. He had endured so much helplessness throughout the night, and now he just wanted to see her healthy again, to see the light return to her eyes. Hours later, the doctor entered to check on Diep. He looked at the readings and nodded in approval. Diep has passed the critical stage. She will need more time to recover, the doctor informed James. But he also reminded him, however, she needs to be cared for carefully. Don't let her become stressed or overly emotional. James nodded, thanking the doctor. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but at least she had made it through the worst. What he needed to do now was wait patiently and take care of her through the recovery process. Diep didn't wake up right away, but James knew she could hear him. He stayed by her side, continuing to hold her hand and speak to her softly, telling her stories about their life together, about the happy moments they had shared. He wanted her to feel his presence, to know that she was not alone. "Remember when we first met?" James said gently, a smile forming on his lips as he recalled that moment. "You made me laugh instantly. You always knew how to make everything feel easier." He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. "I miss your laugh, your voice. But right now I just want you to wake up, so we can continue our journey together." After some time, James stood up and stepped out of the room to get some fresh air. He knew she was still there, but the calm in the room made him feel a little peace. Outside the window, the first rays of sunlight fell on the ground, signaling a new beginning, a new chance. He told himself that as soon as she opened her eyes, he would do everything to bring her peaceful, happy days. When James returned to the room, he saw Diep's eyes slowly opening. Although she was still weak, there was a warm glimmer in her gaze, a sign that she had awakened. James rushed to her side, sitting down and holding her hand tightly. "Are you awake?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. Diep tried to smile, her dry lips curling up with hope. She opened her mouth but could only whisper, "You are here." "I'm here and I'll always be here," James replied, his eyes shining with a belief in the future. "You don't have to worry, everything will be fine. We'll get through it all." Although these were simple words, for James they were everything he wanted to say. He knew that Diep needed time to recover, but he also knew that his presence would be her greatest source of comfort during this time. Once again he sat by her bed, holding her hand tightly. Everything around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them in a world of their own, where love and hope were the only things that could heal all wounds. "We will go through all the difficulties together," James whispered. "You will always be the light in my life, and I will forever be the one to protect you." James' decision to donate blood to save Diep during her emergency surgery was a profound act of love and selflessness. In such a critical moment, where time and life hung in balance, James didn't hesitate to give a part of himself to ensure her survival. This gesture only highlights his deep affection for Diep, but also his unwavering commitment to her, regardless of the circumstances. In an era where many shy away from sacrifice, James' willingness to risk his own well-being for the one he loves serves as a reminder of the extraordinary power of human kindCEO. His courage in the face of such uncertainty reflects the very essence of what it means to love unconditionally. This act of blood donation was not just about saving Diep's life, but about offering a piece of his own to keep her alive. An emotional and powerful expression of devotion. It speaks volumes about the lengths one would go for the person they cherish. And it makes us reflect on how often we are willing to sacrifice for others in our lives. What will happen in the next episode? Thanks for watching.